Today I am going to meal prep some buffalo chicken casseroles. So come on along and lean and green with me. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Elizabeth and I am living in the light. And what that means is I'm choosing to document my weight loss journey using the Optavia 5-in-1 program. Part of the Optavia program is to have one lean and green meal each day that consists of 5 to 7 ounces of a lean protein and 3 servings of lower carbohydrate vegetables. So today I'm going to cook a buffalo chicken casserole and prepare it for the freezer so that I can reheat it very easily. Before I start cooking, if you have not already done so, would you please hit the like button and also subscribe? The more subscribers I have, the more I realize that there are people out there following the same journey and who are willing to support and encourage me along my journey as well. So the first thing that I have to do to make this buffalo chicken casserole is to cook spaghetti squash. And I always say cook once, eat twice. If you have to cook one spaghetti squash, you may as well cook 2. I've got room on the sheet pan to cook 2, so I'm gonna go ahead and cook 2 spaghetti squash. I do not have a microwave oven, so I do this in the oven. I've got my oven preheated to 400, and the first thing that I do to make it easier is to cut off one end. Spaghetti squash are notoriously difficult to cut, and now that I have one end cut, I can stand it on the end and then cut right down the center. Then all I have to do is scoop out the seeds. You can use a melon baller. I think that a tablespoon works really well. And you want to, just like you would clean a pumpkin, you want to clean out all of the seeds and all of the goop. And it really doesn't take, it's not that hard. I wonder if you can roast spaghetti squash seeds the same way you do pumpkin seeds. I don't know if anybody's ever tried that before. Maybe I'm just missing out on that. If you have tried that before, let me know in the comments down below. I'd like to know that. All right, so there's one. So just make sure that you get all the seeds out, all of the kind of darker yellow, orangey stuff. And then I take a little bit of spray and just spritz and put it cut side down. And then with a really sharp knife, watch your fingers, just, as my kids used to say, stabby, rippy, stab, stab. Just stab it away, get those. Try to get the knife in there so that the steam can escape, and that will help this to cook better. And then I'm gonna slide it in my 400-degree oven, and I'm gonna let it roast for about 45 minutes to an hour until it is super soft. And I will see you back here to show you what to do next. The hardest part of this recipe is scraping out the spaghetti squash. I've cooked it, I let it cool so I can handle it. And just using a fork, just run the fork and it literally comes apart. If you've never done spaghetti squash before, it's amazingly simple. So I'm gonna scrape these 4 spaghetti squash out, get as much of the squash out of the crust, the hull, the shell, whatever you wanna call it, as I can. And then we'll move on with the rest of the recipe. This is where I pull my infamous, thanks for the recipe, but I'm not gonna follow you kind of trick. So the recipe called for cabbage and it called for scallions. I decided I wasn't gonna buy cabbage because I knew I already had a small head of red cabbage, so red cabbage it is. And instead of scallions, I'm gonna use some green pepper because again, we're going out of town next week, so I didn't wanna buy extra vegetables that I didn't really need. Okay, I need 2.5 ounces of shredded cabbage, so I'm just gonna really very thinly. Let's see how we're doing here. So that's 1.5, so just a little bit more. Two and a quarter. Oh, that didn't even register. There, 2.5 ounces, 2.63 ounces, so not quite 2 3/4. Mine does 1/8, so I think if I do 2 5/8, I'm gonna measure it first. That's 1 5/8. It's 2 1/4. 2 5/8. All right, so I'm gonna chop this up. This is gonna go into my filling, and then I will be back to show you how to put all of this together. It's gonna go into freezer containers and go into the freezer. The chicken's already cooked, the squash is already cooked, so it's really good to go. Let's throw it all together. So the first thing that I need is enough spaghetti squash. It is going to total 1 pound, 8.5 ounces. So I've got my scale zeroed out, and I'm just gonna dump it in here until I get 1 pound and 8 ounces. There's 1 pound, 2 ounces. Seven ounces. One pound, 8 ounces. So that's my part of my greens. And I've already measured my cabbage and green pepper, so that's going in. It also calls for 18 ounces of shredded cooked chicken. So I often pre-cook chicken breasts, and I portion them in 6-ounce packages. So I know that 3 packages diced up is 18 ounces of chicken. And then the recipe calls for 1/2 cup of hot sauce. So I'm going to use Frank's Red Hot because that's really good as buffalo. And that, when spread out over the 4 servings, is going to equal 1 condiment per serving. And then it also calls for ranch dressing. This is my homemade reduced fat ranch, and for 1 healthy fat, so 4 healthy fats total, I can add 1/2 cup. So spread out over the 4, 2 tablespoons is 1 healthy fat. And since I need 4 of those, 8 tablespoons equals 1/2 cup. So that is my measurement for that. I'm gonna dump that in. And then I forgot about the cheese. Not sure how I can forget about that. But it also calls for 4 ounces, right? 4 ounces of reduced fat cheddar, which is 1 cup. So I'm going to grab that and add that, and I will be right back. Okay, so here is my 4 ounces of cheese. And I have to laugh because sometimes my kitchen really reminds me to stay humble. And I was trying to do too many things at one time, and I've been trying to make some cauliflower crusts for my freezer at the same time. And I made some of the worst looking cauliflower crusts ever, but hopefully they'll taste just fine. So I'm gonna mix this all up and try to get it as evenly mixed as you can. Casseroles are really hard to measure as lean and greens, but just do your best. Make sure that the sauce gets distributed over the squash. You kind of have, you don't have clumps of spaghetti squash hanging out anywhere. Like that. And I had every intention of weighing this before I actually started, putting everything in the bowl that I forgot. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to guesstimate and just weigh each portion and try to make sure that everything is even. I'm gonna make 4 portions. I'm gonna have one that's not gonna go in a glass container. So if I measure this, clear this out, and put about what looks like a quarter in here. That weighs 10 ounces. So if I just shoot for 10 ounces in all 3, and then see what I have left. A little bit too much. That's 10 ounces. It's definitely going to be more than 10 ounces. That's 10 ounces. All right, I'm gonna try it up to 14 ounces and see if I can get an even 14 ounces across the board. 14. I just need 4 more ounces. That's what I'm gonna do. A bit more. Perfect. Let's see what I got here. Oh, yes, I got a little bit left. So we'll do a little bit, a little bit. It's going to be close enough. A little bit, and a little bit. So each of these, I will put a label on them. Each of these needs to go into a 400, I'll put the recipe down below. I can't even remember off the top of my head what it was. And I record this with my phone, so I can't look it up. It's gonna go into the oven. It's gonna bake for like 20 to 25 minutes. So I'm gonna freeze these. So I would take it out the night before, make sure that it comes to room temperature. And then I can bake it right in these glass dishes. And it's all ready for me for a night when my husband is working and I just need a lean and green for myself. So that is a buffalo spaghetti squash chicken casserole. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you will try it out for yourself. And I will see you next time. Until then, please live in the light.